Have you ever felt like your life lost its direction after losing someone special? Do you feel lost, unsure of how to move forward? Today, we will talk about the 7 most common mistakes people make after losing a spouse, and how to avoid them to navigate this new phase in the best way possible. Stay with me until the end because this conversation could change your life. Beyond grief, new challenges arise that didn't need to be faced alone before. Financial decisions, emotional struggles, and reorganizing life. In the midst of this whirlwind of emotions, it's easy to fall into traps that can make this journey even more difficult. Grief doesn't follow a fixed rule. Each person experiences and lives through it differently. But one thing is certain: there are common mistakes many widows and widowers make without realizing it. And these mistakes can make adapting to this new reality even harder. Some of these mistakes involve rushed financial decisions, while others are related to loneliness, neglecting one's health, or even how we handle the memories of the person who passed away. The problem is that by making these missteps, the pain of grief can linger, making emotional recovery and even quality of life much harder to restore. If you've lost someone special and feel like you're trying to find a way to move forward, it's important to know that there are ways to make this process less painful. Understanding the most common mistakes people make during this time can help you avoid them, and more than that, can be the key to rebuilding your life without guilt, without haste, and without taking actions that may lead to regret in the future. After all, moving forward doesn't mean forgetting or replacing the person who is gone, but rather learning to live in a new way, carrying in your heart the memories and love that always existed. Many people, after losing their spouse, shut themselves off from the world, believing they will never feel joy again. But is this really inevitable? Are there ways to overcome grief without being trapped by it forever? In this video, we will talk about the 7 biggest mistakes people make after losing a spouse and how to avoid them. Throughout this conversation, you'll realize that it is indeed possible to find a path to healing and adaptation without disrespecting your pain, but also without allowing it to define the rest of your life. So, I ask you to stay with me until the end, because what you'll hear here could make all the difference in how you face this difficult moment. And if you know someone who is also going through this, sharing this knowledge can be an act of kindness and support. Now, let's begin this journey together, with calm, respect, and the certainty that the future can still hold good moments, even after a great loss. Mistake 1. Not seeking professional emotional support. The loss of a spouse can be one of the loneliest experiences in life, but you don't have to carry this burden alone. Many people avoid seeking help out of pride or fear of judgment, but this can make grief even harder to bear. However, grief can be a long and exhausting process, and trying to endure it without help can turn into an even heavier burden. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's an act of courage. On the contrary, it's a courageous and self-respecting act. When we lose someone we love, our minds can enter a state of confusion. Some people have trouble sleeping, others feel an anguish that doesn't go away, and some lose all motivation to move forward. In these moments, a professional can help you better understand these emotions, offer tools to cope with grief, and even prevent issues like severe depression and anxiety. Psychologists, therapists, and support groups can make a huge difference in how we face this new phase of life. Take Donna Lucia, 72 years old, for example. Married for over 5 decades, suddenly, silence. She tries to move forward alone. She doesn't talk about her husband. She pretends everything is fine. But the silence in the house only grows, until her daughter insists she join a support group, and something changes. But over time, the pain only increased. The silence in the house became unbearable, and the loneliness began to weigh even more heavily. It was only when her daughter insisted she join a support group that her perspective changed. Gradually, listening to stories from others who had also lost their partners, she realized she wasn't alone, and that talking about her feelings was a way to ease the pain. If you are going through this, don't be afraid to seek help.
If balancing your sugar levels feels like a constant struggle, or diabetes worries keep you up at night, Glucose 6 is the solution you've been searching for. Thousands transformed, healthier lives achieved. Glucose 6, a one-of-a-kind product, has changed the lives of thousands, helping them achieve better blood sugar levels and healthier lives. Glucose 6, your solution to balanced sugar levels. Order now for a healthier tomorrow.
If you want to learn more about this powerful formula that is transforming the health of men and women over 50, check the first pinned comment below this video. Or pause the video now and point your phone's camera at the QR code on the screen.
You don't have to face everything alone. Grief is a natural process, but it can be much lighter when we have someone to guide us. Even if it seems difficult at first, talking about the pain and learning new ways to cope with the absence can be the first step toward finding a new way to live. Mistake 2. Avoiding talking about the deceased spouse. Many people, after losing their life partner, try to bury not only the pain, but also the memories. They avoid talking about the person who passed away, steer clear of any mention of their spouse's name, and over time, they begin to feel like everything has become a great void. But is this really the best way to deal with loss? The truth is that silence isn't always a form of protection. In many cases, it becomes an even heavier burden. Memories don't have to be painful forever, and keeping the memory of the person who passed alive can be a healthy way to honor the history you built together. When we talk about the loved one, we recall happy moments, lessons, stories that made us laugh, moments that marked our journey. This helps transform the absence into a symbolic presence, a cherished memory in the heart instead of a void that's hard to bear. Consider the case of Seu Alberto, 79 years old. When he lost his wife, he thought the best thing to do was to move forward without looking back. He put away all the photos, avoided talking about her with his children, and completely shut himself off from any conversation that brought up memories. Over time, he realized he was becoming increasingly isolated. Not because people didn't want to be by his side, but because he had distanced himself. It was only after a conversation with his grandson, who asked about the couple's stories, that he realized how much he missed sharing those memories. Gradually, he began to talk more about her, smile when remembering the good times, and understand that moving forward didn't mean forgetting. If you feel that talking about the person who passed is difficult, try starting slowly. Look at a photo. Write a letter to that person. Share a memory with someone close to you. You may feel sadness at first, and that's natural, but over time, this practice can become a source of comfort. After all, memories aren't meant to be erased, but to be carried with love. Mistake 3. Making drastic decisions about inheritance and assets without planning. After the loss of a spouse, it's common for the surviving partner to feel pressured to make decisions about the assets left behind. Friends and family may suggest a quick division, donating or selling certain items, and many widows and widowers end up giving in to this pressure without considering the long-term impact. The problem is that in the heat of grief, decisions can be rushed, leading to future regrets and, in some cases, even financial problems. Many people believe that making a quick decision will help them move forward. But the truth is that grief alters our judgment. When we're fragile, it's easy to let go of things that we later realize held great emotional value. Or worse, accept financial offers that aren't advantageous. Negotiating a house, selling a car, or even giving up inheritance rights without proper planning can result in losses that are hard to reverse. Take the case of Dona Marisa, 75 years old, who, after losing her husband, quickly decided to sell the family's farm. She believed that, living alone, she no longer needed the place and that the money would be more useful in her bank account. However, a few months later, she realized how much that space represented in her life. It was where her children and grandchildren spent their vacations, where she and her husband had built so many happy memories. The new owner had already started renovations and there was no way to turn back. This regret weighed even more heavily on her grieving process. before making any important decisions, stop, breathe, and wait a bit. Time brings clarity. Experts often recommend the 12-month rule, meaning waiting at least a year before making any major decisions about assets and inheritance. This gives time for the person to regain mental clarity and evaluate the best option. Additionally, seeking guidance from a trusted lawyer or accountant can prevent problems and ensure that any decision is made rationally, not just driven by the emotions of the moment. If you feel pressured to sell or divide assets quickly, take a deep breath and give yourself time. What was built together deserves to be treated with care, and decisions made with patience and reflection will always be the most sound. If this content is resonating with you, don't forget to like the video. This helps us spread this message to more people who need it. And if you've been through something similar, comment below. Your experience can help others. Mistake 4. Abandoning hobbies and personal interests. When you lose a life partner, many activities that were once shared lose their meaning. Some people stop cooking because they always did it for two. Others stop walking in the park because that was a special time with the person who passed. And some simply lose interest in any activity that once brought them joy. This is understandable, but it can be a big mistake. Grief puts us in a state of suspension, where it seems like nothing makes sense anymore. But the truth is that distancing yourself from hobbies and personal interests can lead to a dangerous cycle of apathy and depression. When we stop doing what we love, we close ourselves off even more from the world, and this can make the pain of loss even harder to overcome. Returning to small activities can be a fundamental step in rediscovering joy in life, even if in a different way. Take the case of So Francisco, 77 years old, who always enjoyed playing the guitar. For years, he and his wife would gather with friends to sing and play together. But after she passed away, he felt it no longer made sense to continue. He put away the guitar and avoided any kind of music. Months went by, and the loneliness grew. It was only when a friend insisted he play at a family gathering that he realized how much he missed it. At first, it was difficult, but over time, music brought him comfort again and even new friendships. Keeping up with your hobbies doesn't mean you're forgetting the person who passed. On the contrary, it can be a way to keep their memory alive, honoring what you enjoyed doing together. And besides, it can be a way to discover new passions, meet new people, and gradually rebuild your routine. If cooking for two no longer makes sense, try cooking for friends or neighbors. If that morning walk brings painful memories, try a new route with a new perspective. The important thing is not to shut yourself off from life. Finding joy in small things can be an essential step in rediscovering purpose. Gradually, the days become less heavy, and longing turns into memories that warm the heart rather than just bringing sadness. Mistake 5. Neglecting financial security. The loss of a spouse doesn't just affect the emotional aspect. It can also bring drastic changes to one's financial life. Many widows and widowers discover that they now have to handle bills, investments, retirement, and other financial decisions alone that were once shared. In the midst of grief, it's common for the mind to be overwhelmed, and this can lead to serious mistakes such as trusting the wrong people, falling for scams, or making poor investments without proper analysis. When someone passes away, many companies, banks, and even close acquaintances start offering help. Some may be well-intentioned, but others see the vulnerability of the moment as an opportunity to take advantage. There are cases where children or relatives, without bad intentions, pressure for a quick division of inheritance, or even suggest investments that seem advantageous but may not be suitable for the moment. Additionally, there are those who exploit emotional vulnerability to sell financial products, insurance, or high-risk investments. Take the case of Donna Helena, 74 years old, who always relied on her husband to handle the finances. After his death, a family acquaintance convinced her to invest a large portion of her retirement savings in a promising business. He said it would be a way to ensure a good return in the future. Without financial experience and trusting the friendship, she agreed. A few months later, the business failed, and she lost a large portion of the money that had taken years to save. The ideal, after the loss of a spouse, is to take some time before making any major financial decisions. Just as with assets and inheritance, experts recommend that widows and widowers wait at least a year before making large investments or financial changes. It's crucial to seek guidance from a trusted professional, such as an accountant or financial advisor, who can analyze the situation impartially. Additionally, it's important to be extra cautious about scams targeting the elderly, such as fake calls, unauthorized charges, and offers that seem too good to be true. If something seems suspicious, the best thing to do is ask for advice from someone you trust before making any decisions. Financial life after loss can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be an extra source of worry. With patience, caution, and the right guidance, it's possible to reorganize finances without unnecessary risks and ensure greater security for the future. Mistake 6. Sticking to a routine with no room for new experiences. The loss of a spouse can suddenly change life completely. Shared routines disappear, and many widows and widowers try to maintain the same habits as before as a way to preserve the memory of the person who passed. However, this rigidity can end up becoming an obstacle to moving forward. It's natural that at first it's hard to accept changes. Many people keep the same seat at the table for their spouse, watch the same shows they used to watch together, or avoid any changes in the house. But over time, this insistence on keeping everything the same can become a burden. Instead of bringing comfort, these routines can prolong the pain and prevent new experiences from bringing joy. Take the case of So Armando, 81 years old, who used to travel with his wife once a year to the beach. When she passed away, he decided he would never travel again. For him, that experience only made sense if shared with her. Years went by, and he became increasingly closed off at home, refusing any invitations for outings or events. It was only when his daughter insisted he accompany her on a short trip to the countryside that he realized how much he needed that change. Although it wasn't the same without his wife, he discovered he could still find pleasure in exploring new places. His doesn't mean erasing the past or forgetting the person who passed, but rather allowing life to continue. Small changes can make a big difference. Trying a new restaurant, visiting a new park, rearranging furniture, finding new social groups. Creating new moments doesn't erase the old ones, but rather adds new layers to your story. It's important to remember that opening yourself up to new experiences doesn't mean disrespecting the memory of your spouse. On the contrary, continuing to live and discovering new ways to enjoy life can be a way to honor everything you lived through together. Love doesn't disappear with time, but life goes on, and allowing yourself to live it fully is one of the greatest acts of self-respect. Mistake 7. Not taking care of long-term mental and emotional health. Grief doesn't have an expiration date. Unlike what many people think, it doesn't follow an exact timeline where, after a certain period, everything goes back to normal. The truth is that the absence of the person who passed will always be felt in some way. But that doesn't mean sadness has to dominate the rest of your life. Many widows and widowers end up making the mistake of ignoring their own mental and emotional health, thinking they should simply move on without truly processing what they feel. This can lead to silent suffering that drags on for years. When a healthy path to dealing with grief isn't sought, it can become even heavier. Some people start living on autopilot with no desire to do anything. Others mask the sadness, pretending everything is fine, but deep down they feel a profound emptiness. And some simply give up on seeking moments of happiness, believing they'll never feel joy again without their spouse. Take the case of Donna Teresa, 76 years old, who lost her husband and in the first few months received a lot of support from family and friends. But over time, the visits decreased. The calls became less frequent, and she began to feel increasingly alone. Instead of seeking help, she believed she shouldn't bother anyone with her feelings. The result was a bout of depression that further distanced her from social interaction. It was only when her grandson noticed her sadness and suggested she join a support group for widows that she began to open up and rediscover a sense of purpose in her days. Taking care of your mental health doesn't just mean avoiding extreme sadness, but finding ways to feel good in your daily life. This can include seeking professional help, staying in touch with friends, creating new habits, and, most importantly, allowing yourself to live without guilt. Feeling joy again doesn't mean disrespecting the memory of the person who passed. On the contrary, it's a sign that the love you shared was strong enough to leave good memories, not just painful longing. The path of grief is unique for each person, but one thing is certain: ignoring your emotional health doesn't help at all. Seeking support, allowing yourself to feel, and finding ways to move forward are essential steps to living with more lightness, respecting both your pain and the need to continue. The loss of a spouse is one of the most painful experiences life can impose. It forces us to face a world that suddenly seems empty, silent, and disorienting. But even in the midst of pain, there is a path. It may not be easy, it may take time, but it's possible to move forward without forgetting the person who passed. The secret lies in how we face this moment, avoiding the mistakes that can make grief even harder and allowing life to continue in a new, different, but still meaningful way. If there's one thing that becomes clear when observing so many stories of people who have lost their partners, it's that the pain of grief cannot be ignored or rushed. Seeking professional emotional support, keeping the memory of the person who passed alive, avoiding impulsive decisions about assets and inheritance, preserving hobbies and personal interests, taking care of financial security, opening up to new experiences, and maintaining mental health are essential steps for a less painful transition. Each of these mistakes may seem small at the moment, but when accumulated, they can turn grief into a prison. And that's something no one deserves. Losing someone special doesn't mean your own life is over. On the contrary, it's precisely in this moment that you must find the strength to continue, honoring the memory of your spouse in a healthy way, without letting pain prevent new joys from arising. Remember what was built over the years alongside that person, the love you shared, the moments, the achievements, the lessons. All of that still exists, even if in a different form now. Honoring the memory of the person who passed doesn't mean living trapped in the past, but rather allowing that love to continue existing within you, guiding your choices, bringing comfort, and motivating you to move forward. Time doesn't erase memories, but it teaches us to carry them more lightly. At first, the pain may seem unbearable, but as the days, weeks, and months pass, if you allow yourself to live again, you'll realize that longing can transform into a beautiful feeling that warms the heart instead of just hurting it. And as hard as it may be to imagine now, the future can still hold good moments. It doesn't mean replacing, forgetting, or leaving behind, but rather accepting that there's still life to be lived. You still have so much to offer, to feel, and to share. Allow yourself to live this new phase with respect for your pain, but without being imprisoned by it. Now that you know the main mistakes, which one stood out the most to you? Comment below. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video with them. Knowledge can transform lives. Talking about what we feel is a powerful form of healing, and you never know how your story can help someone else going through the same challenge. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, do so now to receive more content like this, which can help you and others face difficult moments with more clarity and hope. Thank you for staying with me until the end. You're not alone. See you in the next video.